In today's episode, we're discussing starting at a new gym. Whether you've done jiu-jitsu for a little while or a long while, there's always an adjustment period. You need to find allies, why they're important to getting into the flow of the culture of a new gym. Also know you may make some enemies, and it's not necessarily your fault. Gym culture is a hard adjustment, and it's important for you to know who's going to help you and who might hold you back. Also, laws of the jungle. What are they, and how will they affect your experience and your ability to get better at jiu-jitsu? And last but not least, you need respect. Why rolling well and demonstrating your skill will affect how your teammates treat you. Let's get it going. Also, do us a favor while you're at it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow this podcast. And if you listen to this on an audio platform, give us a 5-star rating. Thanks, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. You've started at a new gym, and this can be an absolute burden or it can be an absolute state of heaven, depending on how you play it. Now, you may not be new to jiu-jitsu. Maybe you moved house, you moved suburbs, you have to go to a new spot, and it might feel like starting again. And there's key things that you must do in order to have a really good time with this. I find that people tend to neglect certain social aspects because they're like, well, I've done jiu-jitsu a little while. It should be the same pretty much everywhere I go, right? It is not. And so I feel like there's some subtle things that get left out. And as a result, you might make some freaking enemies if you're not careful with it. And so I wanted to go through and discuss what it's like starting at a new gym. I've changed gyms a couple of times. And I think my inability to realize or recognize power dynamics has created tension and problems. Have you ever had that experience of going to a new gym, Joey, and feeling a different vibe?
Yeah, different vibe for sure. Like, you pick that up straight away, right? Wherever you go. I just wanted to clarify, when you say inability to detect social dynamics or power dynamics, is that synonymous with socially retarded?
It might be. Is that my autism kicking in? Is that my spectrumness affecting me? No, I think it's probably naivete. Having been like, I spent 2.5 years in a particular gym before I moved to another gym, and I got my blue belt, and I was like, I'm starting to understand this jiu-jitsu thing. And I went to a different gym. I was like, this is totally different. And I thought that I was doing the right thing, and I inadvertently was offending people. But I thought, based off what I'd learned before, this is how stuff's done, like that's what you do, right? You make up inappropriate nicknames for people and you call them by it. And it's, just the stuff which is culturally passed on to you by your coach and your teammates, but actually another situation, you're a criminal.
And so it was it not necessarily like jiu-jitsu specific, like not what was happening in roles, but it was more the other social stuff around that?
Many things. It's the whole thing. And so what I want to do is kind of give, I guess, like a cheat sheet, like a series of recommendations. If you don't know any better, and I mean, look, if you're blessed with the special, the golden ratio of autism, and you go to the right gym with the right supplement regime, you too could be Gordon Ryan. But it's one of those things that you may not even have any bad intention, but because you're the new guy or the new girl, they're like, the new guy. There's going to be a degree of skepticism where you have to either prove yourself or, just get familiar with people, get to know people in order for you to get acceptance. Yeah. And this is often hard, especially if you've been training for a couple of years. It's definitely something a lot of people go through where they might be a belt level, blue, purple, brown, like they're in the colored belts. But when they go to the new gym, even if they're good, the coach is not going to promote you straight away, and you don't get the same respect because you're not from here, like you're not a local. So it's like you
got to do your time.
Yeah, you've got to prove yourself in that environment. And I believe you can actually make this easier on yourself if we're more aware of the social dynamics. Jiu-jitsu is definitely one part of it, but the social dynamics is another.
I got an example that comes to mind there. Harry Kimura?
Yes, sir.
which one of the top grapplers in Australia.
Big, handsome man, big, strong man.
It probably, I think Levi might have taken, but I would say previously the most handsome man in grappling. He's
Bro,
extremely good looking.
I think he had a modeling contract at one stage.
And I wouldn't dispute it. A great grappler, right? Gets criticized because just does Kimuras, right?
Sure.
But whatever, he's gone high level with that.
Yeah.
And if the motherfucker gets a double wrist lock on you, it's over. But a lot of people listening wouldn't know him. He's a quiet fellow.
Yeah.
And I remember he came and visited my old gym, the gym that I went to brown belt at, the dojo. And that was a weird gym, right?
Yes.
Like, our coach there was an odd guy. Anyone that knew him was like, he's an odd fellow, odd culture. And I remember Harry and Keller came and trained one night with a mate of theirs too. And that was cool, it was great, tough rounds, I remember. And then at some point after, like, the coach said to me, hey, Harry's training with us now. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, Harry's like signed up here. And I thought, that's odd. I just kind of didn't take him for the sort of bloke that would want to train here.
Yeah, right.
Because I just knew how odd the place was. and not that Harry wasn't odd and wouldn't fit into that, but I just thought the coach there, Dan, doesn't seem like the kind of guy that Harry would be seeking out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember that I think Dan was like, I told him like he has to come to the comps and he's got to like be part of the team kind of thing.
Right.
Like support.
Right.
And, Harry wasn't there for that, right? He's like, I just want to come and grapple and
do my thing.
Yeah. And so whatever, it ended at some point and he wasn't training there anymore.
Right.
But, that was a thing where you could see Dan's expectation was if you're going to train here, you need to be part of the team. And part of the team means contributing with your energy and attendance and helping the newer people and for Harry, it's like, I just want to be a great competitor.
Yeah.
Which he never articulated that, but you look at him like
that's what he's about.
Yeah. So that kind of jumped into my mind as like where the expectations were different.
I heard a saying the other day, which is unspoken expectations are future conflicts or future
confrontations.
Could be. Oh,
rhymes nice.
Damn,
baby. Son.
Yeah. So I think it's very similar that sometimes when you go to a new gym, certain expectations are not articulated. And if you're not switched on to what the hell is going on around you, then this can create problems. So
I think we spoke about that when we were talking about setting up your gym or something, where it was like, if you don't tell people how the culture is at your place, you can't be expected for them to know it. And then you're going to get upset when they don't abide by it.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel bad. And then it just creates friction for the students.
Yeah. So where I wanted to start at in this list, because I've trained at many different gyms around the world, and I kind of keep a bit of a playbook. Like, right, I'm going to a new place. I don't really know anyone. I need to find allies. That's always my first thing. I'm like, they don't have to be friends, but they're just people be like, hey man, what the fuck up with this? Like, what's going on right here? What is, can you, someone who's willing to be like, oh yeah, like, you go, I'll help you out. There's always someone like that who, it doesn't mean they're the best person on the mat. It doesn't mean they're the team leader, but they have enough empathy or they understand where you're coming from to be able to give you a bit of feedback, bit of guide, be like, hey man, make sure you do this. Don't do that. Put your stuff over there. They're an ally. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends on or off the mat. I mean, maybe they do become your best friend, but they're the ones who are just going to help you in a tight spot. And like I'd said before, it would be great if gyms had buddy systems, but they don't. You got to seek them out, because as much as you in your fumbling process of getting into a new gym and working out the social dynamics and all the BS, you're also going to probably upset a couple of people, and you're going to have people who are gunning for you for no reason other than you're the new person and they want to test you. So it's good for you to have someone on your side. So I always look for one or two people who I can kind of lean on when I don't know what the fuck is up.
I would just push back to that a little in terms of people testing. And I think that if you are perceived as a threat, people then like, you know, as if if you're strong and athletic and serious about your jiu-jitsu. But I would say if you're like, I can think of people who wouldn't be like maybe very new to it and have a particular type of personality who maybe wouldn't end up with that label on them because they're not perceived as a threat.
No, I push back on your pushback, Joe, to say
Please
we
do.
will all be tested. You could be the weakest, least skilled person. The coach will still want to see your heart. Like, do you suddenly tap out because someone has mount? Or do you give up in a hard drill? You know, like there's levels to testing. I'm not just talking about, we get the mat enforcer to see where your jiu-jitsu is at. I mean, like there is levels of them seeing what not only your jiu-jitsu skills like, but your character. Like,
Right.
you know, what's your, do you quit early? Or do you put up with a degree of discomfort? Or like, you know, like there's plenty of people who aren't necessarily that good at jiu-jitsu, but they're kind of there for the suffering. So you see that in how they take the beatings, and they still kind of give the thumb. How you going, buddy? Yeah, thumbs up. I'm fucking dying here, coach. You're like, good man. Like, you know, that's good.
You're last here.
Yeah, you know, and obviously that does depend on the culture, because maybe you could be someone who goes really hard and then suddenly everyone's like, bro, you got to take it down a notch. And you're like, oh, what? Isn't this what jiu-jitsu is?
Yeah.
This is what I see on the internet. God damn, I'm just been drilling my jump guillotine, coach. You know, like I think it can go both ways in terms of intensities and feeling that out in terms of you. I believe, and it happens a bit, and we've kind of openly acknowledged this, that jiu-jitsu gyms don't always, not all, but there's plenty out there that don't always do the good job of communicating the culture and what to do in the right situation, like the right thing to do in the right situation.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're kind of left to just make it up.
Yeah.
And often this can
figure it out.
Yeah, this can lead to doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And that can make other people dislike you. You know, just not because of who you are particularly, but just because there's this social fumbling. And really, it's the responsibility of the gym and the coach to help you, but they're often so busy just focusing on the jiu-jitsu that they miss that.
We're talking about starting at a new gym, and one of the things that we absolutely know for sure is that the safest insurance policy when you're starting at a new gym is to be the strongest motherfucker in the room. And we have the program to make you into that person. Yes, I'm having a little bit of fun with that. It's not actually about making you the strongest person in the room, but it is about making you stronger, and it is about supporting your body so that you can continue to train jiu-jitsu and enjoy this new gym that you're at. So here's what you need to do. Go to the App Store on whatever device you're using, search for Bulletproof for BJJ, download the free app, start your 14-day free trial today, and you'll get coached directly by JT and I. We'll see you on the inside. Can you give us an example of like a social fumble?
Yeah, like, you know, calling a higher belt to roll. Some gyms, they don't have that hierarchy. Other gyms, it's sacred.
Yeah.
And if you're from a gym where...
Like as in you are not allowed to do that.
You can't look the black belts in the eye, Joe. Yeah, it's just like, or turning a higher belt down.
Yeah.
Like having a senior person say, you and I will roll now. No, man, I'm not going to roll you. The audacity. You know what I mean? Like it's funny because jiu-jitsu culture is so varied and so unique, like gym to gym. Even though you think there might be a degree of uniformity, there's not. And you can't take for granted that what you did at your old gym is going to fly at this gym.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just, I am pretty decent at picking up on social cues, even though I'm more immune to offending people. I don't care, actually. It's not that I'm not on the spectrum. I'm just like, I'm down to make someone else feel uncomfortable. But then I have inadvertently, in the name of being polite, upset someone else. Like I think I'm doing the right thing and I've gone and done the wrong thing. And then this person thinks I'm a jerk. And I might be a jerk.
You're like, I'm not a fucking jerk. I just act like one.
No. It's like, I am, but you got me for the wrong reason, bro. You need to nail me for what I'm bad at, not what I'm trying to be good at. So enemies or I have gone into gyms and had people decide they just don't like me and every role is going to be war and they're just going to try and me up every time. And it doesn't matter what I've tried to do to be friendly or cool or they're just like, you're and it's like, okay, shit, I'm going to have to deal with you every day. And that's confronting, right? Because you're like, every time you're like, oh, this guy again. They've just made their mind up. Like, no, I don't like you for whatever reason, whether you're a higher rank, lower rank, you're a threat, you're not a threat. And they're just f***ing you up. And you don't have to be big and athletic to have that person decide you're their punching bag. You know what I mean? Have you seen that? I mean, you may not have been exposed to it, but you might have witnessed it, that there's...
For sure, I've been exposed to it. Like I mean, my style was always go into every gym and try to win.
Yes.
And so I took heaps of beatings from people. And I think at the time I was just like, that was a sick roll. Man, that guy's tough. And then like I look back now and I'm like, I came in with an energy and they're like, well, I'm going to meet this kid with this energy.
Right, yeah.
You know, put me in my place, which is that, you know, funny thing because I was too much of a kid to realize, right? So I'm just like, yeah, sick one, boys. Bro, you're really good. Guys like, thanks, bro. I'm a black belt. Eat a dick. But but you know, so that's why I think. Whereas I think if you know, I think I could have approached it differently, and their response to me would have been different. However, totally agree that it's like a pecking order of sorts needs to be established.
Yeah,
and so it is going to be the case that you know whether there's more overt kind of hard sort of tests like that are more in your face like that, or like sort of gentler ones, but it's like people are feeling out who you are and what your steez is. And you know what I would say, and I do this, right? We all judge people.
Sure.
I judge people based on like for me, first interaction means a lot.
Of course.
And I'm aware that I place a lot of weight on that.
Yeah.
And so I also check myself on this. But like I'll go into a gym, like when I went to Garage the other day, and I will greet every single person and I'll say, hey man, my name's Joe. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And based on what...
Love your podcast, bro.
And based on what they give me, I'll make an assessment on that person.
Sure.
And so when someone's like, oh, hey man, you know,
and then give a shit.
The loose handshake and the no eye contact, I'm like, quit.
Yeah.
You know, and again,
that's an old school attitude though, right?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily an accurate measure,
No.
but you know, but my point there is that this will happen to you, right?
Yes.
People will be judging you based on kind of minutiae like that.
Yeah.
And so that then will play out because then you'll roll with them and they might be thinking that motherfucker didn't look me in the eyes,
Didn't
or
respect me.
they put their bag right on top of my bag, or some stupid shit. You
That
know,
guy took my locker.
yeah,
Even though the lockers are just like pigeonholes, it doesn't matter.
yeah. Well, why was he talking to the coach for so long?
Yeah.
It's my coach.
Yeah.
You know, like shit like that.
That's not fair.
He was chatting up that you know that dude that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Motherfucker looks like Marangali, bro. What do you expect?
That's my training partner, bruh. Hey, he's wearing the same rash guard as me. I had it before him.
Yeah.
What's he? You think there could be two of us wearing the same rash guard? Yeah, this guy. Well, here's the thing I was going to say. Laws of the jungle. This is the thing that I have learnt from just going to like a random high school or going to a random lifting gym or whatever. The higher up in the food chain will eat the lower in the food chain. Like if you're smaller, if you're lower rank, you've got to be aware of power dynamics. They're f***ing real. And it doesn't mean the person is a higher belt than you. They might just be the heavyweight ex-Olympic lifting champion,
Competitor,
athletic, all these
yeah.
things. And yeah, the guy's wearing a faded blue belt, but that guy is as tough, as mean, as strong as anyone you could come across. And if you don't acknowledge that that is an 800-pound gorilla, that could be very bad for you.
Yeah.
Like you've just got to, and this has occurred to me more. I've joined a different gym recently, powerlifting strongman gym, and I am easily a good blue belt / new purple belt in this gym.
Yeah.
I am not a strong guy in this gym. There's 10 people in that gym that can deadlift more than 300 kilos. I'm just a low level cat. And no one gives a shit about me.
Are you actually low level or are you mid level?
I'm like mid. I'm mid, low mid. But, you know, like it's one of those things you go, the power dynamic here is different. And I'm invisible. Most like average gyms I go to, it's like, I'm kind of strong here. You know, there might be a couple of stronger cats. In there, it's like, get the fuck out the way. Like, are you using the plates? It's so hard and fast in there. And it's cool. Like, it's not that people are rude, but it's business. People are there to go heavy, get it. And the intensity is so high. If you're not ready to jump in the pit, you should stay on the outside. You know, like don't jump in the cipher. Like you're gonna get fucking ripped. And it's cool. I like that intensity, but I can understand how that would put a lot of people off.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of scary how hard people are going, and the expectation is to go fucking hard. Like if you don't bring that intensity, then you don't belong in this.
I'm just visual. I can't get this image out of me walking in and just dojo stomping that joint, outlifting every cunt in the room.
It will be hard to do, Joseph. I would just say it's
I'm train for it. This is my declaration.
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yo, Marek Health. What stack do I need? I must win.
Give me the Craig stack, please. Give me the Gordon Ryan special. In today's episode, we discuss what it's like to join a new gym. Now, often you look around the room, some people got drink bottles, some people don't. Maybe you showed up without one. Maybe you rolled really hard and you got really thirsty and you took a crash. We want to prevent this. We want to make sure that your experience at your new gym is going to be fantastic. And the best way you can do that is by staying hydrated with Sodi. Sodi is a fantastic combination of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which means when you come in, you're going to have yourself ready to roll. When you go to sodi.com.au, use the code Bulletproof15 to get 15% off and make sure that your next roll is fully hydrated. Oh, yeah. But it's one of those things that...
Funny, isn't it? How we just have these places where like this whole shit built, it's like this shit matters so much. It's like, like in jiu-jitsu gyms, you're like, this fucking shit matters. And then you leave the building and you're like, wait, none of that shit matters.
It doesn't matter. But I guess the difference is I've gone from a situation where I was one of the stronger people at the gym and I've moved to this different gym and now I'm not. And I have to just look at this and go, I am not the big dog in here. I am the small and medium dog. I need to get the fuck out the way. When, you know, that guy over there steps up, it's like, yeah, mate, those are your plates. That's your squat rack. I'll wait. You know, like, because people they're not there to fuck around. Like they are people who will get upset if you get in the way. Then they won't be rude to you, but it creates a vibe. Like there's already a tough vibe. And I think being able to identify where you are in the pecking order of the gym is important. And it's not obvious to start. You got to feel it out a little bit. And that's why having allies, like identifying like kind of SWOT analysis, like identifying like strengths, like allies, and then threats, like enemies, like people trying to f you up, people who are willing to help you. This exists in every domain of life, whether it's a workplace and, you know, everything. You know, you go to a party, you know, like some people you're cool with, some guy you're like, he's probably going to swing on me. All right, stay away from that guy. I, as a rule, always try to make friends with the craziest person in the gym.
Right.
That has always been my rule. Like, I feel like that in any social situation. If you're, because the crazy person is the biggest threat, you know, not necessarily the biggest, strongest person. The person who's going to flip out and maybe stab someone in the eye with a fork. You want to be on good terms with that person. You know, like the craziest person, if you can just at least be cool with them and they're like,
what's the craziest person though? How do you know?
Oh, you don't know who the craziest person is?
Well, this is the thing. What, you're going
Maybe
off,
it's you. Maybe
you're going off the loudest person?
No, not the loudest. Like,
how do you pick them?
The most odd. Usually the coach will say, that guy over there, like, you know, if he's just rocking in the corner, you know, singing to himself, like just
JT, meet Toquinho.
Just
it means tree stump in Portuguese.
That's right. He's just over there curling 60-kilo dumbbells, getting ready to rip your leg off. If you can be friends with that person, at least when the crazy comes out, you're not going to be killed or broken or destroyed by it. You know what I mean? Because that is really the X factor. And having kept this as my rule in all social dynamics, if I'm friends with the most unpredictable person in the room, I'm generally not going to end up on the bad side of that.
Right.
You know, I think it's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know who the biggest threat is in the room, you may fall victim to that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I think that's a thing. And the thing I actually wanted to go to here, which was like a hard lesson for me, actually in Brazil, because I always thought I could win people over by just being nice, or just being friendly, that would over time get me respect, because they'd be like, oh no, this is a good guy. He's not like I'm not a user. I'm not here to exploit anyone. I'm here because I love jiu-jitsu and I'm genuinely trying to be friendly.
Genchi Boa.
No one gave a shit. No one gave a fuck your friendliness. It is all about respect. If you do not have good jiu-jitsu and you can't demonstrate good jiu-jitsu and show heart through your jiu-jitsu, no one gives a fuck. Let me give an example. You get somebody who is not very socially adept, who doesn't get on with anyone, but they're killer good at jiu-jitsu. People can talk all kinds of awkwardness about how they interact, but they're like, bro, but how good is that kid's jiu-jitsu? Oh my God. Like, that guy can really do the thing. You have respect. And respect is the base level for everything. If you don't have respect, it's hard to have a real friendship. If you don't respect someone. And because jiu-jitsu is such a skill-based thing, if people don't respect your level of skill, it doesn't mean shit in the context, you know? And that's why I'm saying that, I think a mistake people commonly make is they go there like, oh, if I just make friends with everyone. But the thing is, it's not guaranteed. You know, if you think about your jiu-jitsu, it takes a lot of time to become very familiar with everybody. It takes years of going to comps and them beating you up, you beating them up, you going through some tough bullshit strength conditioning session that your coach made up. You know, all the suffering that builds the camaraderie takes a long time. So I feel like the first thing you can do is to earn your level of respect for holding down your jiu-jitsu. I feel like that is the first best step you can make in a gym. Is we care about jiu-jitsu skills. I'm here to demonstrate that. And whatever your level is, you know, you might have only done jiu-jitsu 6 months. You had to change schools. But I've seen it many times where somebody is trying to placate you, as the power dynamic is different. They're new and they're just trying to be they're constantly bumping knuckles, and you're like, bro, just roll. Just do the fucking thing now. You're annoying me now. Or they try and talk to you during the roll, oh, did you see the UFC? You're like, bro, you're about to get choked. Let's not have this conversation right now. You know, and I think Josh Hinger actually talked about this, be a good training partner, give them the respect of a good roll. Don't start talking mid-roll to kind of lessen the intensity of the moment.
Right, yeah.
Which could be you're dying or you're gassed or whatever it is, you know? And I think that our human need to crave acceptance can fuck up our ability to be good at jiu-jitsu, because we're trying to get people to like us.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
What do you think of that, Joe? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's often, you can feel that feeling where you feel inclined to try and make this moment more friendly or whatever by saying something, and it's no, we're here to do a thing. Let's do the thing, and I let that be the base of, I dig that.
And there was a saying,
but you know, the dilemma there is that you can overstep that, can't you? And so say it's so tell me about this scenario. I'm sure you would have had it where, so you go in with that, you know, you're that's your kind of your approach, and then you are rolling with someone who's a higher level than you in whatever way, and you pass their guard or some shit, you know, or you almost catch them, or maybe you catch them, and then they come back real fucking hard because they're now fucking pissed off.
Yeah.
Is that just sort of an unavoidable?
That's par for the course. That's how you get better, right? You show your level, and then the respect goes up. We've talked about this before. Someone catches you, and you're like, how did they just catch me? All right, well, I'm not giving them those breaks now.
I've got to take this guy seriously.
Yeah, well, it means you get exposed to a greater level of their jiu-jitsu, and then now you've got to rise to that challenge. Because from now on, they're not taking it easy. They're like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually good. They are literally the level's dialed up, and maybe you've brought something harder on yourself. But if you are trying to get better at jiu-jitsu, then that's truth. That's truth coming through. They're not babying you, and you haven't given them a reason to baby you.
Yeah.
You've given them a reason to respect you. So I think that's good. And there was an interview with Johnny Ive, who was top level guy at Apple, and this is a conversation he had with Steve Jobs, because in a meeting he had said to Steve, "Hey, Steve Jobs, the big boss, could you
Steve Jobs,
tone down being such a quit in this meeting," kind of thing. Like, people are feeling a bit uncomfortable and the team's not loving the feedback. And Steve Jobs is like, "All right, everyone get out of this meeting. You and me, Johnny Ive, we're going to have a chat right now." I can't remember if he was the head of design or what he was. And he said, "Mate, I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in you. You're a narcissist." I was like, "What?"
This is what Steve said to Johnny.
Steve says to Johnny, he said, "You care too much what other people think. I thought you cared about the work. I thought you cared about doing a good job. Instead, you're caring about how people feel about this thing. And that's not what doing a good job is. You are not holding people accountable. People are not doing a good job. You care too much what they think of you, and that's got all to doing good work." And Steve was like, respect levels down. And I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty." I mean, Steve Jobs is an asshole, but it was an interesting thought, because
it was a nice deflection. He played it well.
Well, no, I think it was pretty well known within the company. He was a total jerk, but regardless, what I thought was interesting about that perspective is trying to make someone feel better about something which is not going well isn't necessarily good for them to change.
Right.
You know, in the same way, like letting someone get away with a shitty attempt at some technique and then not pulling them up or not saying something is also, it's a little bit weak too. Like, if you want them to get better.
Yeah.
And also not being open to receiving feedback is kind of, that's doesn't speak to getting better at jiu-jitsu either. So I think, like you're saying about what if you do pass their guard, or what if you do submit them or whatever, well, then that's the truth. There's a hole in their game there. And in the same way, when they come back at you with their full game and then you crumble underneath that, then that shows you're not quite up to their full game. And so it's getting to the heart of truth of what is your skill level in jiu-jitsu. And yeah, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, you know, but we do want to get better at jiu-jitsu. So when you get to a new gym, I'm not saying you got to go in there and take people's heads off, but at least do your best to show your skill level. And this actually will, I found that when I worked harder and made less excuses about my jiu-jitsu as like a personal, like, oh, they don't like me because I'm Australian or whatever. No, they just don't want you to be weak. They want you to be a good team player. And so once you show your heart, or you show your ability to keep coming and don't give up, then they're like, "All right, I got time for you. I'll invest in you. I'll give you some help." Ladies and gentlemen, do you suffer from sore and swollen knuckles after a hard class of jiu-jitsu? I have the answer for you: the Fingertine, custom designed by our friend, the Grip Physio. Now, these wraps are specific for your fingers. Wrap them around, work them through, and reduce the swelling so you can recover faster and be back on the mats in no time. You can get 20% off when you use the code Bulletproof20 at checkout. Go to thegripphysio.com.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I think I totally agree. I think the other consideration just on that scenario of training overseas, particularly in Brazil, is that for a lot of gyms, they see a lot of gringo travelers.
Of course.
And so they're like, I'm not going to give you much time because you're probably just here for a week and then you disappear.
Off, yeah.
So there is that period of like, that if you do plan to stick around, you have to kind of prove that you're there for a bit and you want to become a part of this thing.
But I think that's universal for gyms. Like boxing gyms are very much like that.
It is, but say like I can think of gyms I train. Like I remember going to a couple of gyms. I trained at a gym in Manaus.
Okay.
And they were just so blown away that someone was visiting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they're in the middle of the jungle. They don't get visitors. And they were like, they treated me like a king, actually.
Oh, wow.
Like they were so friendly and like welcoming and like, there was none of that. And I'm like, yeah, because they're not, but the gyms in Rio, the gyms in Sao Paulo, they're like, whatever, can't get in line, like.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, I was just thinking like, if we just step outside of BJJ culture for a second, like in fight gyms, if you haven't been there and trained for 6 months, a year, the trainers don't take a big interest in you because you could just they could start to invest in you and put time into you, and then you just quit or get injured, and they would have seen that so many times if someone's been in the game 10, 20 years, that there's only a very few who see it all the way through to a championship, or, you know, like raising children. It's like, you know, it would be difficult, speaking as someone who has no children, but if it was just, here's a random child, they will stay with you as long as they want to. And then you're feeding them, you're looking after them, you're teaching them all the life skills, and they go, I don't get enough iPad time, I'm leaving. You're like, these kids, they come and go, right? I guess it's...
Give me those life lessons back.
How dare you? How dare I contribute in a positive way to your life? But no, it's interesting because we all have we only have a certain amount of time that we're in jiu-jitsu. And if you're someone who's already done it a long time and you've committed your life to this thing, you are looking for those passionate, dedicated people. And that's not everybody. And that's not to say that you can't be in jiu-jitsu for less time and you're less dedicated or less passionate. You might just be absolutely in it 1000% for 2 or 3 years, but then maybe you flame out or your life doesn't support it, or, you know, anything can happen. But it's this changing gyms thing. I think changing gyms is far more common now than it used to be because there's way more gyms, there's way more options, and definitely having a bit of a playbook or an approach can make the transition smoother. You kind of ignore these ideas at your peril. You know what I mean? Like, it could be a way harder adjustment period, and maybe there's so much friction there, you're like, I can't even stay here. You know, I've got to change gyms again.
Yeah.
And then it is difficult because it's not really talked about in jiu-jitsu, the social dynamics, which is really strong. And it affects everyone's experience, probably more so than we give it credit for. Anyway, folks, there it is. You're joining a new gym. There are some things you need to consider. And for your consideration, we would appreciate if you would give us a like, a subscribe, and a 5-star rating on your audio platforms. We appreciate you all.